Today we are in Thiruvananthapuram, outside this beautiful house that was built in the 1800s. It was constructed by Swati Tirunal, the famous music composer and king of Travancore. It is called the Thanjavur Ammaveedu. Ammaveedu literally means the house of the mother. So who is this mother and why does she have a separate house? Therein lies a fascinating story. Old Kerala had some unique social customs. In the 1800s, in the Kingdom of Travancore, the king's wife was not the queen and she did not get to live in a palace with him. She was called an Ammachi and she lived outside the palace in a house like this called the Ammaveedu. Who was the queen then? The king's mother or his sister played the role of the queen. Let's see how the system worked.
In a country that is unabashedly patriarchal, Kerala chose to be radically different. Some communities in Kerala chose to give power to the women rather than the men in the family. Let's speak about one such community, the Nayars. The entire Nayar community is matrilineal. That means that property passes from the mother to the daughter and not from the father to the son. Traditionally, the Nayar men were the warlords of Kerala, busy men, waging wars, avenging defeats, protecting the kingdom. Getting married and settling down to raise a family was hardly a practical option for them. So, instead of going through a marriage ceremony, they went through a social contract called a sambandham, a contract that allowed men and women to take partners. How did this contract work? Typically, the woman would stay put in her ancestral house called a Tharavadu. The man would visit her on and off. If a baby was born, it was raised in the woman's house. If it was a boy, he went off to fight yet more battles. And if it was a girl, she continued to live in the house until she eventually inherited her mother's property. With the men being so constantly away, it fell upon the women to run the household and take decisions.
100 years ago, this was the norm, and even the royals had to live by these rules. In the Kingdom of Travancore, a king's son could never be king. Instead, the crown passed from the king to his nephew, his sister's son. You see, Matriliny in Kerala is called Marumakkathayam. Marumakkal refers to nieces or nephews. So the term itself refers to inheritances going to the sister's children.
How exactly did this system work in the royal family? The king usually married a woman from the Nayar community. She was called the Ammachi, meaning the mother of the king's children. But she had no official position or social standing in the court, and she couldn't even be seen outside with the king. She didn't get to live with the king in his palace. Instead, she was given a large house like this one, and she stayed there with comfort and dignity, if rather quietly. The queen's role was played by the king's mother or his sister. That sister would get married and eventually produce the next heir to the throne. And that's how the crown passed from the king to his nephew. Did you notice that the most important person in this equation was the king's sister? Her son would go on to be the next king, and her daughter would go on to be the next queen. And if she didn't have a daughter, a girl child was adopted as a princess so that the royal lineage could go on. These queens had their own palaces and were quite a power center unto themselves. They even had their own queendom, a territory called Attingal near Thiruvananthapuram. So they were called the Attingal Ranis. The king's own children, they were not even considered royalty, and they were raised in Ammaveedus like this one. The matrilineal system was not unique to the Nayars, nor was it confined to Kerala. Across India, communities like the Kasi and the Garo tribes of Meghalaya and the Bunts and the Billavas of Karnataka all follow matrilineal with many variations.
So was this matrilineal system fair to the women? Well, yes and no. It did give the Nayar women the security of their own houses. totally independent of their wandering husbands. It gave them the freedom of choice. Women were free to divorce, and even widowhood did not mean the end of the world. But even in a matrilineal system, it wasn't that the women had complete authority. The most important person in the household was still a man, the mother's brother called the Karanavar. He wielded much clout in the family. He managed the estate, checked the finances, and decided who got married and when. Things started changing in the late 19th century when the European influence got stronger. To the Victorian mindsets, these practices seemed outrageous, and there was a forceful demand to eradicate them from the society. The idea took hold, and finally in 1925, the Queen of Travancore signed the historic Nair regulation, abolishing matriliny and bringing in the patrilineal system.
And that brought the curtains down on an unusual custom. But these Ammaveedus still stand testimony to a time when stereotypical gender norms were tested, to a time when society was very comfortable living by a completely different set of rules.